The National Desk, America's News, now.
Giant hail, tornadoes, and damaging wind. Tens of millions at risk tonight for severe thunderstorms. The places in the path of possible destruction. Assassination investigation. New updates from the FBI. What we now know about Thomas Matthew Crooks and what he was searching for online before attempting to shoot Donald Trump. Plus, the death toll rises as more people get sick from popular deli meat. What we're learning about the most serious listeria outbreak in over a decade. This is the National Desk. I'm Amira David. Right now, more than 33 million people at risk for severe thunderstorms with damaging winds and hail in the Dakotas. From the Ohio Valley to the mid-Atlantic, North and South Dakota could see giant hail and tornadoes. It comes as crews are working to restore power right now to thousands of people after severe storms hit the Great Lakes region last night. Around 235,000 customers still don't have electricity in Michigan. The storms brought winds exceeding 75 miles per hour and 2.5-inch hail to some places, leaving widespread damage. Severe heat is also a big concern for 60 million Americans today, mostly in the east. Washington, D.C. could top 100 degrees today, and Nashville could reach 106. A target of opportunity. That is what the FBI is calling the Donald Trump assassination attempt by Thomas Matthew Crooks last month. Kevin Rojak, the special agent in charge of the FBI's Pittsburgh field office, told reporters today that Crooks searched online for how to make explosives with a detailed effort to plan an attack at some event. He also searched online for events for both Trump and for Joe Biden. The FBI also released 4 photos of Thomas Crooks' firearm, his backpack with the collapsible weapon, 2 improvised explosive devices that were in the trunk of his car, and an air-conditioned unit they believe Crooks used to climb onto the roof before the shooting. The FBI confirmed that Crooks was shot by the Secret Service and not local police, and that he acted alone. And tonight, with now just a little over 2 months until the election, a spotlight on the Democratic candidate as Vice President Kamala Harris prepares to sit down for her first interview as the presidential nominee. Many say they are hoping to hear more about her updated border policy and why she's evolved on the issue. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell with more.
Vice President Kamala Harris out on the campaign trail, powered by momentum and a modified message.
As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
That bipartisan border bill includes $650 million to build new and fix existing portions of the border wall, a wall featured prominently in a recent campaign ad.
Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
It's a stance that's changed drastically since she ran for president the last time, when in a post on Facebook, she called Trump's border wall a complete waste of taxpayer money that won't make us any safer.
This administration has decided to vilify them and to trade on them for the sake of this president's medieval vanity project called a wall.
Her opponent and his supporters assert she had no role in negotiating the border bill and accuse her of lying about her position to try to win more votes.
Do you really believe she's going to build a wall? That's just bull. She's had 4 years to build a wall, and she's done nothing. For the last 4 years, they've turned every Trump policy upside down that prevented illegal immigration, and we're being overrun with 10 million people.
Warnings about those large numbers of people now in the country have been mounting from top intelligence officials.
I've never seen a time where all the threats, or so many of the threats, are all elevated all at exactly the same time.
Those new threats, along with shifts in voter sentiment, could be reasons for the pivot.
We can be a nation of immigrants who love their country and a nation with a secure border.
The Harris campaign insists while border legislation is tough, it's also broad and includes things like new technology to catch drug smugglers. Her campaign website is still mostly absent of any official policy positions, Amira.
And Christine, there are a few issues Kamala Harris has been accused of flip-flopping on in recent weeks. What are some of the other issues that voters are expecting her to address?
Yeah, you know, she was previously outspoken in her support for things like Medicare for all and her opposition to fracking. Those changes not necessarily surprising. You know, times have changed. And also, winning a general election means appealing to more moderate and independent voters as well as her base.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing her move more toward the center. Live from Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzell, thank you as always. Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, are in the battleground state of Georgia today. The campaign is going on a bus tour in the rural counties of Southeast Georgia and Savannah as part of their post-Democratic National Convention blitz. Recent polling shows Harris is making Georgia competitive, more so than President Biden did. And before flying to the Peach State, Governor Walz spoke at the International Association of Firefighters Convention in Boston this morning. The group is one of the largest labor unions in the country, representing nearly 350,000 emergency responders. The Minnesota governor says President Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, will hurt unions and help the wealthy instead.
When Donald Trump was president, he blocked overtime benefits for millions of workers. He opposed efforts to raise the minimum wage, and he even proposed slashing budgets for federal fire service programs. Those are just simply facts.
Former President Donald Trump and Senator J.D. Vance, meantime, also on the campaign trail. Trump will be making appearances in Wisconsin and Michigan tomorrow, while Vance spoke at a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania this afternoon, saying America has everything it needs to succeed, except for one thing.
We have got the best natural resources and the most beautiful countryside of any country on the face of the earth. And we've got something better than that. We've got the best history. We've got the best traditions. We have got the best workers right here in Pennsylvania. The only thing, thank you. The only thing that is broken about this country is its leadership.
Special verdict. The jury unanimously finds the murder willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The jury unanimously finds the murder was committed by means of lying in wait.
Robert Tellis, the former Las Vegas area county official accused of murdering an investigative journalist, has been found guilty. Tellis is accused of murdering Jeff Gearman in retaliation for a series of articles he wrote about Tellis fostering a hostile work environment, along with an inappropriate relationship with a female employee. The jury is now deliberating on Tellis's sentence, where he could be sentenced anywhere from 20 years to life without parole. Chicago police have released new video of a person of interest in the murder of U.S. postal worker Octavia Redmond. On July 19th, Redmond was shot and killed by an unknown male. The getaway vehicle in the video was found abandoned and burnt out a day after the shooting. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service is offering up to a $250,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Meantime, in Denver, after a 2-month operation, police have announced 11 arrests, including 4 minors, and a string of 33 auto thefts in the city. Police say they've also recovered 17 stolen vehicles and at least 2 firearms. The investigation is ongoing and more arrests are possible. Investigators are looking into whether there is a connection between the thefts and organized crime. Northern California wildfire arson suspect Spencer Grant Anderson remains in jail and did not enter a plea this afternoon. Prosecutors say that Anderson threw fireworks out of his car window last month, causing the Thompson fire that burned almost 4,000 acres while destroying 26 buildings, including 13 homes. 2 firefighters were also injured battling that fire. Anderson is being held without bail and now faces up to 21 years in prison if convicted. New tonight, workers at all Fred Meyer grocery stores across Portland are now on strike over unfair labor practices. 4,500 employees, including cashiers and grocery pickup service staffers, are off the job as of this morning. The National Desk's Joe English in Portland at one of those strikes with the latest.
Hey, hey, whoa, whoa, the scarf green has got to go. Well, these workers, well, they're from the grocery and meat departments. That includes everybody from the people who cut the meat to people who run the checkout counter to people who stock the shelves. Now, Fred Meyer says the stores will stay open during the strike, and other departments like electronics or home goods, for example, will be staffed. This is called a ULP strike, standing for unfair labor practices. A union spokesperson tells K2 that these employees aren't treated the same as other employees in other cities up and down the West Coast. The workers are asking for higher wages and better communication from Fred Meyer during contract negotiations.
We're out here on ULP strike to compel Fred Meyer to follow the law. Our most important message for the community, it's real simple. If you got to go shopping, just shop somewhere else. Safeway and Albertsons are good union stores. That's where you need to go if you want to support workers.
Now, we did get a statement from Fred Meyer about the strike. The president said, in part, the company believes associates should have a voice in choosing what is right for them and their families because the bargaining process ultimately impacts their paychecks. From the beginning, it has always been our goal to put more money in our associates' pockets. Now, the strike is scheduled from now until Tuesday morning of next week, so that means it could run through a very busy Labor Day weekend, have a big effect on shoppers and workers.
And coming up, the new progress Israel says it has made in the fight against Hamas in one of the biggest West Bank operations in months. Then why the Surgeon General is sounding the alarm about parents' mental health and what he's calling for from the country. And later, coyotes are getting bigger and bolder in one Rhode Island town. The action residents there are now taking to get it under control. In the Middle East, Israeli forces launched a large operation in the Palestinian West Bank overnight that Israel says killed 10 Hamas militants. Hamas has confirmed some of those killings. Several arrests were also carried out. Israel says it is rooting out West Bank militants to prevent future attacks. But Palestinians fear the raid, which is expected to continue over the coming days, intends to broaden the war and heighten a multi-decade conflict over Israeli security and what Palestinians say are land grabs by Israel in territories Palestinians want for a future Palestinian state. The West Bank escalation comes as warring sides and mediators meet in Qatar with the fate of a ceasefire deal in question. There are still several sticking points in talks over a potential three-phase agreement. The U.S. says the fate of the deal is in the hands of Hamas. Hamas officials have accused Israel of reversing course on key Israeli concessions that were previously agreed to. And tonight, more fallout from the Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg's letter to Congress about censorship pressure coming from the Biden administration. As the National Desk's Matt Gelka tells us, House Republicans are celebrating it as a win for free speech.
We think we've had a huge impact, which, again, our focus, though, is protecting the First Amendment. That's what we've been focused on all along.
Ohio Republican and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan took a victory lap after Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg's letter admitting there was pressure from the Biden administration to censor content. Much of the letter revolved around COVID-19 posts on Facebook and a warning from the FBI about Russian disinformation leading up to the 2020 election. That warning caused a Hunter Biden laptop story to be temporarily demoted. Let me ask you this. Do you trust Facebook today?
I feel a lot better about where we're at based on the work we've done. We've got to stay on top of this because we're talking about those fundamental liberties, fundamental privileges we enjoy as Americans.
Zuckerberg admitted in the letter that Meta ultimately made the decisions on what posts got taken down, but that the pressure was wrong, and in hindsight, they'd make different decisions today. Tech media personality Kara Swisher blasted the Meta CEO's letter.
He also certainly had enough power to push back and say something publicly at the time. I think, he can have regrets, but they're his regrets, his business decision regrets. And to use the term pressure is just currying favor with Jim Jordan.
More fallout. Former New York Times journalist Alex Berenson told Fox News Zuckerberg's letter will impact his lawsuit against the Biden administration. Berenson sued the administration along with Pfizer higher-ups for First Amendment violations after he was banned from Twitter in 2021 for posting about COVID vaccine skepticism. Another part of Zuckerberg's letter also addressed donations. His philanthropy donated to voting rights groups in 2020. Republicans repeatedly criticized the donations, and he won't be making them again, telling lawmakers in his letter he wants to remain neutral and not appear to be playing a role in influencing the election outcome. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
The Supreme Court will not reinstate President Joe Biden's latest plan to cancel student debt for millions of borrowers. The fate of the plan will remain with the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, who already placed an injunction on the program as it reviews a lawsuit by multiple GOP attorneys general. The SAVE plan was unveiled last September after the Supreme Court ruled Biden's previous attempts to cancel student debt were unconstitutional. The Navy will meet its recruitment goal of 40,600 by the end of September, but won't be able to get everyone through boot camp in time. A Navy official says around 5,000 sailors will have to wait for training because of last-minute enlistments. The entire military has struggled with the recruitment in the last few years, causing the Navy to lower its standards for test scores and education. The CEO of the messaging app Telegram, Pavel Durov, is facing several preliminary charges in France related to allegations the platform is being used for illegal activities. Durov was released from custody today following 4 days of questioning, but prosecutors say he must check in at a police station twice a week. Telegram defended its lax content moderation policies, saying they are within the industry standard. 21 Starlink internet satellites now in orbit after a partially successful launch by SpaceX this morning from Florida. Part of the rocket fell into the Atlantic Ocean and caught fire, but the rest of it made it to space with the satellites. Still, FAA has paused all future Falcon 9 launches for the time being as it investigates that fire. And SpaceX's Polaris Dawn launch, which was supposed to happen this morning, has been delayed. This would be the second time in 2 days. The weather looked good for takeoff, but the team said they were worried about bad weather for the landing. The launch won't happen until at least Friday. The crew hopes to complete the first spacewalk by private astronauts then. The captain and engineer of the capsized super yacht belonging to billionaire Mike Lynch are under criminal investigation by Italian authorities. The yacht sank off the coast of Sicily 2 weeks ago when it was hit by a waterspout. 7 people died in that tragic accident, including Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter. Italian media is reporting that investigators are looking into whether or not the engineer and captain followed safety protocols and properly secured all hatches to reduce flooding on the yacht. Another ship in the area escaped the storm unharmed. Tonight, at least 8 deaths related to that Boar's Head deli meat recall. An additional 5 from the last reporting by federal health officials after a crippling listeria outbreak. South Carolina, Florida, New Mexico, and Tennessee have now confirmed deaths related to the contamination. Since July, the CDC has been investigating the outbreak, which has led to at least 57 illnesses. It is the largest listeria outbreak in the U.S. since 2011, with Boar's Head recalling more than 7 million pounds of deli products. The mental health and well-being of parents is now a public health concern. A new Surgeon General advisory says an American Psychological Association survey found 33% of parents reported high stress levels as compared to 20% of other adults. The advisory warns chronic stress in parents can negatively affect their kids as well. It calls for policy and culture changes to better support parents. And as it turns out, donating a kidney is safer than ever before. That's all thanks to medical advancements and better donor selection. It's always been pretty safe, but a new study published in JAMA found the risk of death among people donating kidneys has fallen by over half in the last decade. The need for donors has increased along with chronic disease rates. And it may not be the usual complication you worry about when it comes to high heat, but healthcare providers say this time of year there is another serious health concern that goes up in hot weather. The National Desk's Liz Bonus explains.
Believe it or not, it's kidney stones, a little rock that can form usually from calcium deposits as the kidney is making urine. Urologist Dr. Rebecca Rodersheimer told me.
When it's inside the kidney, it doesn't cause so much of a problem, but when it starts to move down the ureter, it can block the kidney from draining. It causes quite a bit of pain.
As for why they would be more prevalent when it's hot out?
We think because of dehydration. So in the warmer months, people are outside more, they're sweating more, and they're a little dehydrated, and that can increase the risk of kidney stones.
To reduce your odds, she suggests you drink more water, cut back on your salt intake, and she suggests you reduce your intake of colas. One study found people who drank one soda every day had a 23% higher chance of forming a kidney stone. As for treatments,
there's some pretty minor procedures we can do. Generally, we do something called ureteroscopy, which means we put a little camera inside the urinary tract, and we can break the stone up with a laser and pull it out.
there's also a topical shockwave therapy that can break up the stone. It is non-invasive, done from outside the body. She says some of these, however, do pass on their own, and sadly, if you are prone to kidney stones, they do tend to reoccur. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
And coming up, the unique artwork popping up all over beaches on California's Central Coast. We're back in just 90 seconds. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start with a growing coyote problem in a Rhode Island town.
Coyotes. They seem more dog-like than dangerous, but they are becoming a pest in Middletown. The town council president says they are working with the agricultural department and looking into creating a volunteer task force to manage the population.
The town and we are designing signs, which they are going to give to Middletown, that are expressly say that you should not feed coyotes, and there's a fine associated and an ordinance associated with this as well for each occurrence.
The president would not explain how they would manage the population, but Dr. Numi Mitchell with the Narragansett Bay Coyote Study says if any coyotes are to be called, experts need to be behind it.
I had a crazy amount of people from the community say, Dan, you should go take this job. It's an opportunity to kind of build trust back in the community, build the program up to what it was before.
Dan Weaver was named head football coach of Westview High School in late July, following the resignation of former coach Jamal Jones amidst allegations he slapped players while they were sleeping at a summer football camp. But Weaver says he wants to turn a new page. The Oregon native played football at the University of Oregon for 3 years, and he says coaching high school football is something he's always wanted to do, and now seemed like the right time to take the lead.
Driftwood structures have become a common sight on the beach at Morro Bay. Some shacks block the sun. Many have that primitive look, and there are a few possibly designed by engineers.
It's mostly just to have fun on the beach, just something to do while you're there. And, the water's kind of cold, so once you get cold, you go up and start building a little fort.
All of the driftwood was washed in during California's wet winter. It's not hard to find on the beach, and it comes in all shapes and sizes. One artist used seaweed to help block the wind of his beach house. Another used the lay of the sand to create his coastal getaway between the dunes.
Well, the Paralympic Games are on. They kicked off today with an opening ceremony in Paris, including a parade down the famous Champs-Élysées. More than 4,000 athletes with physical, visual, and intellectual impairments will compete in 22 sports over the next 11 days. And competition kicks off tomorrow with taekwondo, table tennis, and track cycling. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us later on this evening. Have a great night.